So here's where we left off with the verb help, right? To help someone do something or to do something. People use it indistinctly, right? Some people use to, some people don't. That varies, right? And I was going to go to the verb try, right? And this is not necessarily clear from the examples here under try, right? So you may want to have a look at them, but this doesn't help. This is try and try to, which is different. But suppose I say I tried sending her flowers. Possibly you understand I did something wrong, and in order to alleviate the pain and in order to solve the situation, I try doing something so as to solve the problem, right? As an attempt to get something. So I try doing something. I don't know, I cannot find her at home. Try calling her at the office, right? But what if I use to, the to infinitive? I tried to open the door. When I use the to infinitive, what is involved, or was it implied, sorry, is that I couldn't do it. I tried to open the door, but something happened. This but is there, right? Something happened and I couldn't open the door. I don't think, just let me check. Yes, I will go to the possessive in a minute. Another verb that may be problematic is mean. Yes, so I don't know. Having a degree means studying hard, so it involves studying hard. But I meant to see her as an attempt. I meant to do something. I tried to do something, right? Okay, and then many other verbs like love, like, hate, prefer, begin, start, we mentioned earlier. I love dancing or love to dance. These are very, very similar, right? And this will vary depending on the use. So now, yes, we're going to go to the possessive. This is point number 4 for the entry for the gerund on page 329. And here Birchfield introduces the topic talking about possessives, and I actually wanted this because of the za, right? The possessive. I wanted you to pronounce this double S like in dissolve and desert, right? And scissors, right? Those few double S's that are pronounced as za. Now, he begins to introduce this, and he gives us the example, Jones won by Smith's missing a chance. And he says, well, if I drop the apostrophe S, well, it's okay, it's possible. But if I drop the name altogether, then I don't know who did this. And that's the reason why I use the subject for the ing form. It's because it is different from that of the main verb. He says that in the other sentence, when you say he's having received a bad name, sorry, I'm going to read the whole thing. He suffers somewhat like the proverbial dog from his having received a bad name. And he says his is a wasted word because the subject here is the same. So having doesn't need the subject, right? That's what he speaks about, the wasted word, right? And I have here this question of giving a dog a bad name, right? Give a dog a bad name when someone has a bad reputation, right? It's difficult to change it, right? Okay, so initially this is the end of the first part, which is the gerund, right? And now we're going to, this entry for Genzi will come later, right? It's not important now. So I'm going to get started with the gerund possessives with gerund, right? The entry, sorry, on page 608. And I hope you indulge me a bit because the first part of this entry is mostly about issues that are really not important, right? That are actually about grammarians arguing about the problems of the use of the possessive with the gerund. And the grammarians in this case are Fowler and Jespersen. You may have heard of Jespersen. Actually, Fowler was not a grammarian, right? He was just someone who was interested in the language, right? I'll talk about him a little bit more later. But if you wish, you can read the foreword, right, to the book by the preface by Birchfield, right, in which he tells you a little bit about Fowler's life, right? Now, Fowler and Jespersen were arguing about the merits of the sentence that went, women having the vote reduces men's political power, right? And I have this here. Women's having the vote reduces men's political power. And the problem was not this men's political power, because it's a noun and it's natural to have a genitive with a noun, but a genitive with an ing form sounds a bit odd. And Fowler called this a fused participle, right? And here begins the spat, the disagreement between Fowler and Jespersen, right? And what I want to say about this is that Fowler complains that this structure, I mean, he says this one is okay, and he complains about the misuse of the structure, right? And he cites a very long example. The one starts with new subsections. It's the first column of page 609. And he says that what happens here is that the subject of the ing form is too far away, because the sentence goes, new subsections giving the Board of Trade power to make regulations for permitting workmen who are employed under the same employer, partly in an insured trade and partly not in an insured trade, being treated. So this being treated is the object of the workmen, right? And he says that the tendency of this construction is towards that sort of cumbrousness, right? And here I want to take you to, no, this one. I don't want to go here. Not portentous, but first, oh, I thought I had the word, sorry, cumbrous. Which we're going to use the first, let's say not the first meaning, so making something difficult, right, and wieldy, cumbersome. The idea is that it is clearly difficult to follow, right? And he says that the rapidity with which it's gaining ground is portentous. I love this. This is a bit exaggerated, right? In this case, pregnant with consequence, right? So there's going to be, I mean, the world is going to topple because of this. The world's going to come to an end because of this unwieldy structure, right? He's very angry. And then he shares many examples, right? He went on to claim that a dozen years ago, and he meant when he was writing the King's English in 1906, it was not very easy to collect instances of the most elementary form of the fused participle, right? And he's going to give us examples. So first I want to give you some background here. The King's English is kind of the precursor to the Dictionary of Modern English Usage, which he wrote in 1926 when he was 68 in the Isle of Guernsey, right? He was practically secluded. This is part of the things Birchfield tells us. Guernsey is an island, right? Guernsey, but it's a type of milk and so on and so forth. Don't worry about that. Now, so I wanted to give you some context here about Fowler, right? And then he gives all these examples that he says are wrong. China, so I'm not going to read the whole example, but the noun with the ing form. China developing her resources. It's China's developing. Anything happening. Well, he wants anything's happening. We'll see that in a bit. George drawing in rather than George's drawing in. Them being rather than their being. And he says all such sentences are grammatically indefensible, right? So they defy grammatical analysis. This makes no sense, he's telling us, right? And he supports his view with Latin grammar. And here comes another problem. Jespersen responds. He vigorously defended the construction condemned by Fowler. So they're in disagreement, clearly. And he gives numerous examples, right? And and he calls him an instinctive grammatical moralizer, right? He calls Fowler that. He criticizes Fowler for believing in the validity of Latin parallels. And he says each language surely has a right to be judged on its merits, on its own merits. And that's very good, right? Because remember, we have talked a lot about a time in the 18th century when grammarians thought that Latin was the purest language, and because English was the language of the world, of course, you have to imagine Great Britain setting out to conquer the planet. Not a good thing, but they were happy about it. And they wanted English to be better, right? So they molded it in Latin, and many problems ensued, right? And so it seems that Jespersen is right in saying, well, this is English, not Latin, right? Still, well, he condemns Fowler. He gives them lots and lots of examples, and Fowler responds, right? And the response is his rejoinder, right? And this is another text. And he says that he admitted that he had underestimated the extent of its use. So he is acknowledging that the use is widespread, but he was otherwise unshaken, right? He also poured scorn, and this is why you have the next expression, which is to pour scorn on someone, right? Or porn, or heap scorn on somebody, right? Which is to criticize someone severely. Okay, so clearly they were not in agreement, right? So, well, this was a parenthetical explanation. Thank you for bearing with me. And now we're going to go to the current practice, which is the rules, right? And now Birchfield is talking as the 20th century draws to a close. He says, well, we use the apostrophe s for names, proper names, and personal nouns like sister, father, mother, right? And he gives examples. Again, I'm going to just quote a bit. Cope's collecting, Kafka's marveling, my father's being, Reagan saying, May's sleeping, my grandfather's or his grandfather's having, and so on and so forth, right? And though there are many exceptions to this, right? When I read the exceptions, I also want to add the apostrophe s, right? So when we're going to have 4 categories. The first one is personal nouns and proper names. The second category is for non-personal nouns or nouns that are part of a phrase in the plural. Those don't take the apostrophe s. Toffee apples going, the house being, government department straying, this elegant bone being cast, whatever. If it's non-personal or part of a phrase or in the plural, the apostrophe s disappears. Now, point number 3 is the one I have talked to you a lot about, yes, frequently in class. Sorry, here is the one I wanted to go. We're supposed to use the possessive adjective, right, if we're not using the genitive, not the objective pronoun. But Birchfield says, where there's a difference in form, usage is evenly divided. So there are as many people who use the objective pronoun as many that use the possessive adjective, right? And he gives us lots and lots of examples. Now, what you should remember is that basically this is the correct form, this is the standard form, maybe the more conservative choice, and this is the more informal, conversational, though used everywhere, on television, in journalism. Now, I keep asking, is TV English or journalistic English the only English there is? Certainly not, right? So some people use this, some people use that, right? Swan, entries 295, sub entry 4, 296, sub entry 2, tells us that with verbs like see, watch, hear, feel, dislike, imagine, stop, we tend to use the objective pronoun. I saw him getting out of the car. I dislike him telling me what to do. If you think about these examples, you will see that they look more like he got out of the car, he told me something, right? He is working, and so on and so forth, right? Also, sorry, I skipped this example. You may say, do you mind me, my, John smoking? Those are the possibilities. But me and John would be the informal ones. My and John's would be the more formal, maybe the more grammatical, the more standard, the ones that adhere to this rule that says it's the possessive adjective. Now, point number 4 then. We got there. Indefinite pronouns. He says usage is divided, but I would say this is very, very unusual. Anyone's wanting, anyone's being is very, very odd, right? So I have never seen it. Of course, he can quote examples. Finally, he closes the entry with, sorry, he closes the, well. Well, then we're going to go to Dangler, so I'll stop here. He closes by saying that the possessive with gerund is on the retreat. And I will say no, it's not, right? And for this, I'm going to quote The Guardian and The Observer style guide. He's talking about the gerund. They're talking about the gerund. Sorry, I love what it said, nothing to be frightened of. Don't be scared of the gerund, right? But you're supposed to use the possessive. See? I was worried by his smoking rather than I was worried by him smoking. In practice, many people, yes, even journalists, don't bother. So what are they saying? You're supposed to do that, supposed to use that structure, but supposedly that's the correct one. Well, people use something else. Take your pick. Remember that the choice with the objective pronoun or the genitive is maybe more educated, more formal, whatever. He closes by saying substitution of him and me would take both sentences, examples that he was reading, sharing, into a lower level of formality. So basically, this is what we're saying. The possessive adjective is formal. The objective pronoun is more formal, right? So I hope that was informative, and that's the end of the entry. And I appreciate that you bear with me with my getting sidetracked at the beginning. Thank you very much. The next topic is going to be danglers. Bye.